Douglas and Lincoln, how a black leader and a reluctant liberator struggled to end slavery and save the Union, by Paul Kendrick and Stephen Kendrick, published in New York City by Walker and Company. It was published in 2008 and has a total of 292 pages, and this will be my review of the book. The notion of slavery became more of a pressing issue in America during the mid-19th century. This book tries to demonstrate, despite having very different ideas on slavery, that in the end, both Lincoln and Douglas saw a common goal that both could work on. However, America was still stuck in age-old bigotry towards African Americans, and still is today. America wasn't willing to change its traditions as quickly as many abolitionists would have liked. Those who wanted slavery to be abolished entirely were people that called themselves abolitionists, if you do not know what that term means. I digress. When Abraham Lincoln was still contemplating the idea to allow black men to enlist in the Union Army, a common saying from Northern troops was, "I am no nigger lover." That is found on page 117. This simple yet powerful message remained with many soldiers even as the war drew to a climactic conclusion. Many civilians were still uncertain and in some cases even terrified about seeing black men in arms walking down their streets, even if they were fighting for their country. The cruelties of slavery in the South seemed to also be represented by hate and disgust in the North. For anyone of African American descent, Douglas ignored any social opportunities apart from his work for African Americans. Trying to change society's perspective of African Americans would be a difficult task, and though it was meeting stiff resistance, it was still gaining traction as the war progressed. The first-hand accounts go in-depth into the mindsets of the people. When Colonel Robert Shaw of the Union Army was presented the colors for the 54th Massachusetts, he proclaimed that the state did not make a mistake in trusting black soldiers, found on page 136. The experiences of those who survived the battle offer detailed depictions about the struggle and brutality of the war, such as the case of Lewis Douglas, Frederick Douglass's son, and the assault of Fort Wagner by the 54th Massachusetts. Lewis vividly describes the advance and retreat that took place on the sandy beachhead in South Carolina. Page 139 is where it is found. Providing information such as this allows the reader to further visualize what is happening and the sheer desperation on both sides, not just the North but the South, as the Civil War grew longer and more brutal. The commitment to detail and the use of descriptive depictions of the war and the comings and goings of Lincoln and Douglas add to the book's extensive research. Paul and Stephen Kendrick traveled to various museums and libraries to research more into the lives of Lincoln and Douglas. At first glance at the occupations of the two writers, Stephen being a volunteer for a social work organization by the name of Harlem Children's Zone in New York City, and Paul being a senior minister of the First Church in Boston, one would not assume they are credible. And at first glance when I was reading this book, I did not assume they to be credible. Although their occupations are not history-based, they have been recognized by the Christian Science Monitor, a very renowned reviewer, for their book Sarah's Long Walk, The Free Blacks of Boston, and How Their Struggle for Equality Changed America, which received one of the first Best History Book Awards in 2005. In regards to the argument over that Lincoln and Douglas, though having differing views on how to end slavery while saving the Union, they eventually understood that in order to accomplish their goals, they had to compensate. Both men knew that if they allowed black soldiers to fight in the armies, that the Union would prevail, and it did. This was proven not only through the descriptive meetings of Lincoln and Douglas later in this book, it's also enforced by looking at how the country was responding to the enlistment of black soldiers with respect to the ongoing war. Overall, this book would be an excellent reference for any scholar writing a paper about the Civil War or the issue of allowing black men into the army. This is also a good read for anyone who's passionate about the American Civil War and Reconstruction era in America, as it touches on both of these topics, allowing the reader to see the war through not only Lincoln's and Douglas's eyes, also experiencing the events through the civilians and soldiers gives that extra perspective that very Civil War books offer. If I were going to give a rating on this book, I would give it a 8 out of 10. It is above an average book, but there are flaws in the book which you will find out when you read this book. I will provide links to where you can purchase this book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and so on and so forth. Thank you for watching my book review on Douglas and Lincoln, How a Black Leader and a Reluctant Liberator Struggled to End Slavery and Save the Union, which was written by Paul and Stephen Kendrick, father and son. Thank you for watching.